we're going to be in for a very special treat, and that is the feature of a debate. What we've tried to do, as you can well appreciate by now, is to increase the intensity of the course as the week has progressed. And probably this might be the peak. I guess you have to decide on that. After the session this evening, we invite you to room 2, perhaps to mingle for a while, and there will be some mingling helpers there for a couple of hours. It's my pleasure now to introduce to you the person who has agreed to chair this particular session. I refer, of course, to my colleague, Dr. Treslin, who's done all the work in coordinating and putting this together. He will take you through the format and introduce to you our debaters. So I'd like to ask you to welcome Dr. Dennis Treslin, please.
Thank you very much, George. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the great debate. This evening, the resolution before you is, be it resolved that attempting to respond to the Newfoundland and Labrador mosaic is leading to mediocrity in education. This evening, we're indeed privileged to have 4 very experienced debaters who are going to take us through the arguments both for and against that particular resolution. Let me introduce the 4 debaters to you. Beginning at my far right, we have Mr. Lauren Wheeler, former Deputy Minister of Education, who will be the first speaker for the affirmative this evening. His partner is Mrs. Ruth Noel. Ruth is a member of the Avalon Consolidated School Board. She will be the second speaker for the affirmative. Next to Ruth, we have Dr. Alice Collins, who will act as the first speaker for the negative. Alice has recently been appointed to the directorship of the Student Teaching Division at the university. And sitting next to Alice, we have Mr. Wayne Russell, who is Executive Director of the Newfoundland Teachers Association, and Wayne will serve as the second speaker for the negative. The order of the debate this evening is as follows. We will ask Mr. Wheeler to lead off, and he will have 7 minutes, during which time, among other things, he will define in his discussion the terms of the debate in terms of definitions. Following Mr. Wheeler, we have Dr. Collins, who will have 7 minutes to speak. Following Dr. Collins, we will move back to the second speaker of the affirmative, Ruth Noel, who will speak for 7 minutes, followed by the second speaker for the negative, Mr. Russell, who will speak for 7 minutes. At which time we enter into the rebuttal phase of the debate, and leading off will be Dr. Collins, who will speak for 3 minutes, followed by Mr. Wheeler, who will speak for 3 minutes. We will be giving the speakers a minute or two in between the presentations to allow them time to confer with their colleagues of the debate. I would ask the audience that there be no prompting from the audience and that we observe as much silence as possible during the actual debate. Now, you people play a very important role this evening. You're going to be the evaluators, and on your shoulders rests the great decision as to who has won the debate. I must tell you that if it should turn out to be a draw, in that case, according to the rules that we are following, the members of the negative win. So that is something I want you to keep in mind. You have been given a pink sheet, a scorekeeping sheet, and it carries with it the resolution which I've just read out, along with the names of the speakers. I would ask you to evaluate the speakers during their presentation. The definitions for the criteria that are being used are located at the bottom of the sheet. I would ask that you total your scores, and at the conclusion of the debate, I will ask my attendants, my 3 graduate students over here, to collect these, and they will leave the room and do the tally. While the tally is going on, I would invite the 4 debaters to say a few words to you if they should so desire, and I certainly would invite you folks to pose questions to the 4 individuals. If you're going to be posing questions, I would invite you to use the microphone so that this may be picked up on tape. Please do be prepared to ask questions. Don't leave me in a lurch like the group did last year. It got to be a very long 10 minutes up here, but we will try and move this as fast as possible. Before we begin, I would like to also draw to your attention that we have the assistance tonight of 3 very important individuals over at the side table. We have Ms. Elizabeth Elliott, Cliff O'Quinn, and Mike Haley. These 3 individuals are the official timers and will be sending a timing message to the speakers to let them know at what point they must be prepared to terminate their discussion. They will also ring a bell. Matter of fact, Mike, you may ring the bell now so that the audience hears what that sounds like. And at that point, I would say that the cow that lost that never did come home. But at any rate, it's important that that bell have been rung because the debaters now know what to listen for, I think. I believe that that completes the introductions, and now without any further delay, I would call upon the first speaker for the affirmative, Mr. Lauren Wheeler. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, honorable opponents, members of the House. So this is the high point of your week. I'm surprised you're in such good humor. The rules of debate require the affirmative side to define the resolution before the House. Both sides have agreed on 2 key elements in the resolution. First, we accept the premise that efforts have been made to respond to the Newfoundland and Labrador mosaic. Second, we interpret mosaic rather broadly as the composite of cultural, social, and economic conditions which define the quality of life in Newfoundland and Labrador. 2 questions remain for the House to decide. Is there evidence of mediocrity, of mediocre performance in education? Is mediocrity induced by conditions and attitudes within the province? These are emotionally loaded questions. Our instincts screen denial, but the evidence for an affirmative response is persuasive and cannot be brushed aside. The word mediocre is frequently used to describe fair to midland performance relative to broadly accepted performance standards. Comparisons to national and international standards do not present a very reassuring picture of achievement levels in this province. Since 1974, achievement on the Canadian Test of Basic Skills has remained virtually constant at several percentile points below the national level. Interprovincial comparisons taken from science achievement tests administered in 18 countries, including Canada in 1984, show that Newfoundland students rank the lowest in Canada on almost all measures. In international terms, Newfoundland students would have ranked 11th in grades 5 and 9 and lower than all other countries on the grade 12 level. In 1988, first-year post-secondary students in Newfoundland scored 10 points below their Ontario counterparts on mathematics inventory test. The picture is even more disturbing in light of the weak performance at the post-secondary level. especially in science and technology. University students typically avoid mathematics and science or transfer early to other disciplines. Only 60% attempt first-year mathematics, and nearly half of those fail. About a quarter attempt first-year science courses. The situation deteriorates from there. Only 1% of university graduates take a degree in mathematics, and the number of graduates with science degrees or with degrees in the applied sciences are only marginally better. Retention rates at the technology institutes are dismal. 50% at Cabot, 25% at the Marine Institute. The evidence supports the view that if there is one province in Canada that should be concerned with the quality of education it provides, it is precisely this province. Yet year after year, and in poll after poll, Newfoundlanders show extremely high satisfaction with education in the province. Higher than in any other province, much higher than for any other public institution or for any other area of government responsibility. That may say all that need be said about our educational expectations and our grasp of the challenges confronting our society. The task force on mathematics and science found low expectations so pervasive and the avoidance of challenge and effort so prevalent that it bold-lettered the description "crises of low expectations" in its report. Listen to this viewpoint from elementary secondary educators. Quote, "One of the most striking aspects of the discussions with teachers and school district officials was a pervasive assumption that large numbers of students are simply incapable of coping with academic work at the high school level." And this summary of viewpoints from post-secondary educators, quote, "Far too many students are finding their way into post-secondary institutions, students who are fundamentally incapable of meeting the demands of programs at that level." The social attitudes those statements reflect would fit comfortably into another era, but not in this one. Knowledge is the most prized commodity in our world. Successful societies depend increasingly on large numbers of people who think for themselves for a living. Their schools and colleges must be dedicated to the creation of helping environments in which students become very adept at thinking, places where students master the art of learning and acquire a strong taste for it. They cannot afford to deny potential and waste opportunities. Their schools and colleges must graduate the vast majority of the youth and young adult population with achievement levels once thought possible for only a select few. Education is the important element in knowledge-based societies. But we must never lose sight of the fact that it blossoms best if the whole environment, mosaic if you will, is nourishing and conducive to its growth. We submit that the environment in Newfoundland is seriously wanting in this regard. Because natural resources loom so large in the Newfoundland psychic, we are slow to adopt innovations and demonstrate little faith in scientific progress. However, the fact remains that the terms of international trade have deteriorated against primary materials, and we must expect that trend to continue in the future. Primary industries no longer provide the desired jobs, and we have not developed adequate alternative employment opportunities. There is a reciprocal relationship between education and the economy. Education provides knowledge and skills essential to a viable economy. The economy provides the means to maintain and improve education, the economic incentive for people to pursue quality education, and the means to attract and hold well-educated people. Neither has done well. The grim profile of mediocrity is etched in the tables of Statistics Canada. Low levels of education in the adult population, high unemployment, low wages in many of the available jobs, the exodus of people. If the social environment that exists in Newfoundland prevails, it cannot be expected that schools and colleges, whatever their pretensions, will make great headway in any other direction.
Thank you, Lauren. Yes, you're ready to go, right? Okay. We'll now listen to the first speaker for the negative.
Before I start, I just have to say, Dennis was describing how you've got the biggest job tonight, deciding and all those numbers and the crunching out, and I think the job is more complex than electing the President of the United States. And I was thinking there is something simpler you could do, and I was wondering what in the past have we had that's been so complex that somebody's tried to simplify. It seems to me the last thing that was as complex as this was when we were trying to figure out how you determine card quotas. And Ray Guy said, well, look, what you can do is count the Finns and divide by 2. So what you should do tonight is take Ruth and Lauren's score and divide by 2, and then we'll see how it comes out. Mr. Moderator and worthy opponents, my honorable colleague and friends, we are pleased to say to you tonight and to dispel the myth that as a response or because of the response to the Newfoundland mosaic, that education in Newfoundland is mediocre. We're going to start from first principles. We're going to look at the foundations from which education emanates, and that's one of 3 philosophical principles, and we're all familiar with them. One, there is the ancient Platonic belief that the purpose of education is for the creation and the promotion of the just state, in which everyone is treated fairly according to her or his nature. The second was Rousseau's belief in the unrestricted natural development of the unique worth of the individual. That's the primary, that's the only purpose of education. And thirdly, there is the combination of both of these ideals, which is articulated and advanced in the work and the philosophy of John Dewey. Dewey believed that the educational institution can serve both aims, and the development of the individual and the promotion of the just society can occur simultaneously. It is this pragmatic philosophy of John Dewey on which the aims and philosophies of education in Newfoundland and Labrador are founded, and I quote, "Education is the process by which human beings are enabled to achieve their fullest and best development, both as private individuals and as members of human society. It is right, we argue, that the needs of individuals be met, and this demands, within the Newfoundland mosaic, the broadest possible response. To entertain any other notion is to be elitist, and it will produce a classist and racist society. We hold dear the notion that every child and every adult has worth in the Newfoundland mosaic, and despite our limited economic resources and the geographic barriers that we will always have, we accept the challenge, and we will never back down from this. Horace Mann's dictum that education is the great equalizer for the poor and the disadvantaged must ever be held in full view as we continue to believe in the need to respond to the diversity of the Newfoundland mosaic on our journey to equalize differences within this province and to equalize ourselves within the Canadian mosaic. Let us turn our attention briefly to a broad description of the Newfoundland mosaic, which we accept as described by the first speaker of the affirmative. And let's just look at what the educational response has been to that mosaic. We suggest the mosaic, to be specific about it, is threefold. It's a blend of the newly acknowledged multicultural presence in our province. It is the indigenous culture of the native population. And thirdly, it is the fiber of rural life which is expressed in many forms throughout this province. The educational response to the Newfoundland mosaic, as we understand in rural Newfoundland, has been the standardization of educational opportunities throughout this province to the extent that that has been possible, such as the creation of a qualified teaching force, the providing of modern schools, and the development of a provincial curriculum. Where possible, we have held that children ought to receive their education in their home community. And as we know, the presence of the school has been the heart of that community. It is a statement that this community will persevere, and thus we as a people have rejected the calls of people like Dr. Michael Walker of the Fraser Institute that Newfoundland can support only 3/5 of its population concentrated on the Avalon. People have said a resounding no to resettlement. And in the communities of Galtus, Grand Bank, and Trepassey, as one woman put it, our hearts have been broken, but we will not give up. We will not leave Galtus. We will fight for our community. Education has been part of the infrastructure which allows people of Newfoundland communities to have heart and to believe there is something we can work and fight to preserve. It would be easier economically to buy one-way tickets to Toronto, but we do not believe that's where 400 years of struggle and some success have led us. We will stand strong with the people of Galtus, and we will lobby for an educational response which meets the needs of children there. We find support for this in the House report, which maintains that there should be a response to the rural mosaic that goes beyond what exists now, so that, and I quote, skills may be acquired which will allow individuals to be more reliant and successful in adapting to life in rural Newfoundland. Hand in hand with the efforts of Innu and Eskimo peoples of northern Newfoundland and Labrador has been the development of teacher education programs for Native and northern people. This, as well as recent trends in distance education, are a practical response to our belief and commitment to the needs and talents of Indigenous peoples. Just as New Canadians and founding French and English Canadians assumed the right to education and services in their language, the right of Native people to be educated in their language and with curriculum which grows out of their experience and culture, this is a right which must be upheld and treasured. Finally, there's the question of room, not literally, but metaphorically, in our hearts for the expression of multiculturalism in Newfoundland society. I believe the presence of Asian, European, and African, so many others, can only enrich our lives. We are a small, isolated rock in a great ocean, and we must open our minds and our doors to people from any nation who choose to make their home with us. To date, we have not made a response educationally, so the question of mediocrity cannot apply here. But the Minister of Education has announced there will be a policy on multiculturalism so that the educational system can belong to all children who attend our schools. We believe this response to be morally and philosophically sound, and we wonder aloud what it is that what mediocrity has been produced by this response, which in many cases is limited. We hold this to be dear, that the education of all children and people in this province must be upheld, and we must support and encourage the broadest possible response to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. Sounds like we're having a bit of trouble with the bell over there, but just before we move on to the second speaker from the two sides, I would just ask the individuals if they'd like to take a few seconds to confer with their partners. All right, we will now proceed and hear from Ruth, the second speaker for the affirmative.
Mr. Moderator, worthy opponents, ladies and gentlemen, I shall now continue the argument showing you why attempting to respond to the Newfoundland mosaic is leading to mediocrity in education. We live in a democratic society. We have certain values and ideals we wish to keep. Paraphrasing from Brian Crittenden book, Education and Social Ideas, I would like to quote, "Some of the necessary elements of democracy are, 1, all human beings have equal and ultimate worth. 2, that political authority and responsibility rests finally with the whole people. 3, that political quality and individual freedom are the fundamental intrinsic values to be realized in a democratic society. And 4, that each individual is ultimately the best judge of what is in his best interest, unquote. The present school system is designed to foster certain values and beliefs which are inherent to that group. Our schools foster Christian values, with some variations, and they look at democracy from their religious point of view. This itself is not a problem. What is the problem is that there is no provision for a system which can look at democracy from another perspective, from different viewpoints and from different experiences. The problem is not that there is a choice of a denominational system. The problem is that there is not a choice of a public school system. Let me illustrate this point with some examples. One of the first tenets of democracy is that all citizens have equal worth. In the booklet, The School Board, which I'm sure you are familiar with, published by the Denominational Education Councils, the aims for education in Newfoundland state, and I'm quoting, "Education is a process by which beings are enabled to achieve their fullest and best development, both as private individuals and as members of a human society. We believe that best and fullest development can be achieved only in a Christian democratic society, and that the aims of education, both general and specific, must be conceived in harmony with such a belief," unquote. This is one-dimensional. There is no recognition that complete development can come from non-Christian values. Students attending our schools in Newfoundland who are of the non-Christian faith feel the effects of this philosophy. For example, in a brand new grade 3 textbook called Friends of God, such concepts as beauty, trust, decision-making are done from a strictly Christian viewpoint, though there are a few examples from the Old Testament. There are no Hindu, Buddhist, or Muslim examples. There are examples from other countries, but they are still with a Christian slant. What an opportunity denied to say, yes, there are other religions which value these qualities, and there are people with no formal religious affiliation who have the same values. So what happens in our schools? Those who are not adherents to the Christian faith suffer in silence, do not feel they are of equal worth, which our democratic ideals promote. They must either participate in such discussions, leave the room, or sit and listen to the lesson by not being allowed to leave the room. Most importantly, they feel their values, traditions, and cultures are less worthy. Teachers may make every effort to make students feel as comfortable as possible, but the fact that compassion is necessary proves the point. In a denominational system, the choice of teaching as a career is limited to those who meet the faith and lifestyle requirements of the respective denomination. The system may also limit the choice of teaching as a career for those Christians who are reluctant to subject their careers to non-professional scrutiny, but there's no other system in Newfoundland. We have been talking about people who are not adherents to the faith. Let's look at Christians who can be made to feel extremely uncomfortable and less worthy when exercising free choice. Free choice is another component of a democratic society. If you wish to exempt your child from religion, you must write a letter to the school board stating this. The parents of this child can receive a letter from the religious coordinator of the board expressing the board's displeasure, and it does happen. This creates a discrimination against the child and parents of extreme discomfort. Parents exempt their children for a variety of reasons. In our democratic society, parents have this right and should not be questioned by the school board, especially on such a personal matter. A fundamental characteristic of democracy in an exclusively denominational setting, that political authority and responsibility rests finally with the whole people, cannot be practiced at the school board level. Again, the inclusion of non-adherents on some existing boards, not all, while a plus and a welcome initiative, in no way modifies this point. These persons are there by special dispensation, not as a matter of their rights as citizens in a democratic society. We try as educators to develop each child to their best ability. We recognize that not all children have equal abilities. There are those with learning disabilities, average children, exceptional children, and variations in between. There is a general teacher allocation formula for the regular classroom. There's a formula whereby children with special needs, such as slow learners and handicapped, are given staff in special classes. The missing component is a gifted child. There is no special allocation for teaching gifted children. Teachers for these programs come from the general allocation formula, not from a special one. This is a reflection of the tendency in our society to discourage exceptional abilities and talents. I recall a discussion with some parents who did not want their child in